Masaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Gassman finds Masaba.
Now Bannon with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
We could still be playing now, we'd still not score. Mistakes as what cost us yesterday afternoon, and we couldn't put our chances away. Such a frustrating afternoon. Hello and welcome to the WTID podcast. I'm James Mappin, and alongside me, returning from his week away with a bout of illness, is Mr. Matt Johnson. Matt, fighting fit now after your sniffly nose and tickly cough or whatever it was?
Yeah, I'm pleased to finally have an answer for why when I get a cold it lasts for 3 or 4 weeks rather than it just being like a week like every other person. Yeah, bronchitis is what I've got. So yeah, it's going well. I'm pleased it didn't turn into pneumonia or anything like that because it can turn quite nasty. But yeah, well and truly over the man flu. Let's leave all of that behind us.
Yeah, definitely. Matt, I used the word frustrating to describe yesterday's game. Is there another word that you could use to describe yesterday afternoon?
Frustrating was good. I went with exasperating. It's just, yeah. I'm sure. Obviously, we're going to get into it, James, but it is just that long huff. Yeah, is pretty much how I'm assuming every Sheffield Wednesday fan walked out the stadium yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. Before we start, shout out to the guy that shouted to me, you're the guy from the podcast, aren't you? As I was walking down Burton Street. Not going to lie, did catch me a little bit off guard. And no, we're not talking about a win, is what he said as I walked off. Also, a shout out to Josh and Will, Patreon members that collared me before the game and at half time as well. So always nice to chat to the listeners as well. Another one before we get into the match. We spoke to a certain Mr. Lee Gregory, didn't we, last week? I mean, that is going to be available to listen for our Patreon members on Monday evening. So depending on when you're listening to this, you either don't have long to wait or it's already going to be available for you. Matt, what a down-to-earth guy he is.
Yeah, he is. He's exactly, from what you get from his playing style, he is exactly the same type of person. He's really, really down to earth, very friendly. He had mountains of stories about not only his time at Sheffield Wednesday, but kind of like coming through the ranks as well. But it is really interesting to hear that there are a couple of clubs that, since obviously he's played for, that he does look out for. He didn't mention all of them, I will be honest with everyone. Yeah. But Sheffield Wednesday is definitely one of them. And it's really nice to hear that last year didn't kind of sour his view on the club, really, because it was, I think, he touches on it obviously in the discussion, but it didn't go the way that he'd hoped that last season. But yeah, it was really, really good to listen to some of the stories and get an insight into a bit behind the scenes, and in particular, sort of like that 6-day period in between the two Peterborough games was really interesting to get a kind of insight into the squad and the mindset and how they'd all got on and all the rest of it. So yeah, I mean, he was a great listen, and I'm sure there's a 7-day free trial on Patreon. So if you are looking to sign up, there's no excuses. Sorry, James, done your job for you there.
Matt, you're learning well. Is all I'm going to say. But yeah, I think for me as well, great insight into what actually happens on the pitch, which you don't hear. I know obviously in COVID there was no fans, so you could kind of hear a little bit more about what was being said, but especially what we was talking about in the Peterborough game and going through that, and even kind of what was going through his head in the final against Barnsley, which you might not think it. And at the end of the day, like all the players are human, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So of course they're not just going to always be thinking about scoring that goal. I think is it what's his face now, the Southampton goalkeeper who were at Arsenal, who kind of openly admits that his mind wanders when they're playing. What's his name again now?
Aaron Ramsdale.
That's the one. Yeah, his name's eluding me there. It's funny actually. Josh, Patreon member, was saying when he's listening to the pod, he says he's absolutely screaming to himself whenever I forget a player's name, and that'll be another one. I'm sure Whaley would have been screaming again, but yeah, as as I mentioned, it is on Patreon, so if you want to go and listen to that, make sure you sign up. Patreon.com/WTID pod. Let's get straight into the game then, because I feel like there is a lot of talking points, as there always is. But yeah, the starting lineup then, it was 3 changes. In came Johnson, Kabaki and Ugbo. Out went the 2 lows and Ingleson as well. So that was the full lineup of Beadle in goal, Valerie, Bernard, and Famewo, Valentin, Charles, Bannon and Johnson, Gassama, Ugbo and Kabatske. What were your thoughts on that one, like the changes and the lineup in full?
I thought it was harsh on Jamal Lowe and Max Lowe, is the honest answer. Jamal Lowe in particular. I know he didn't do anything out of the ordinary at Coventry, but I did think that he linked the play really, really well, and brought others in particular sort of our central midfield pairing and our wide players. And I thought he was unlucky to miss out yesterday, because I think we saw when he came onto the pitch, his ability and his ability to link the play is probably the best that we have within our squad, and I thought it was harsh on him. But again, I understood, you've paid money for a forward who did very well last year, and I can understand going back to trying to get him kind of like up and firing, and yesterday was a good opportunity to do so. Max Lowe and Marvin Johnson at the minute. Marvin Johnson, when he's fit, it's his shirt to lose. But I did think that Max Lowe had an outstanding game at Coventry and marshalled kind of his assignment that day really well in Mason Ephron Clark. So yeah, I thought it was harsh on those 2. I could understand Ingleson coming out for Kabatski, because I thought Olaf Kabatski's done really well when he's played for us, and the link that he has with Marvin Johnson is very good. So yeah, ultimately fine, but I did feel it was a little harsh on some of those players.
Yeah, I mean, I said before the game that I think Ugbo's going to start. I know we've been quite critical of his performances so far, and in my opinion, rightly so. But I feel like you're not going to score any goals from on the bench, and we know there's a player in there, because we saw that last season. What did he score? 6 in 5 or whatever it was. There is a player in there, and he can score goals, but we've just not seen it so far. But I thought he needed minutes more than anything else, and I suppose there's no good game to play. You just got to play and hope that the chances are going to come. You probably like to think that more chances will come at home than away. But yeah, I thought it would be a perfect opportunity for him to come in, and obviously he did. Obviously, we'll talk about his performance a little bit later on. But yeah, I looked at the lineup and I wasn't disappointed. I thought, yeah, that's a decent lineup. Like you just mentioned there, Johnson. I feel like Johnson could be the home player, and Max Lowe might be playing the away games, just because we play slightly different away from home than we perhaps would do. Not at Hillsborough, perhaps not as attacking maybe. And so yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. We have got a lot of games coming up as well, haven't we? In quite quick succession, which we need to. Danny will have an eye on those as well. To try and manage the the workload and things like that. But yeah, I was fine with it, to be honest. The game, I've mentioned that it was frustrating, and I think it definitely was. One thing I want to point out early doors, so many people, I feel like I've been watching a different game to quite a lot of people on social media. Some people, saying, crap performance, same as Leeds, all stuff like that. I mean, I think we have to put things into perspective, don't we, a little bit? Burnley, what's their squad worth? £100 million or something. They let £100 million worth of players go in the summer. They spent £50 million. They're absolutely worlds ahead of us. So, what did we actually expect? Do you know what I mean, Matt? Yeah,
no, I'm with you, James. I think the overriding feeling of, I'm not saying everybody, the overriding feeling of self-entitlement from some sections of the Sheffield Wednesday fan base is baffling to me, in terms of what more could you have asked for from that squad yesterday. They were tactically very well organised. They created opportunities. No, they didn't dominate the game, but we didn't dominate the game at West Brom in the second half. We didn't dominate the game at Coventry in the second half. We definitely didn't dominate the game at Bristol. We are a side that sacrifices possession and breaks with intent, which again is what we saw yesterday. We lost the game yesterday down to 2 defensive errors. And not taking our chances, and it's as simple as that. I mean, I think we pointed out before, obviously recording, people are quick to forget West Brom scored 2 against us. Coventry scored 1 against us. We are a side that does concede goals, but over that week we took our chances when they arrived, and some of those were half chances. Josh Windas's isn't like a gilt-edged chance, is it? It's a looping header from 20 yards out.
Yeah, I think we had 4 or 5 chances yesterday that were easier than that one. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Same with Gisama's goal at Coventry. That's not an easy finish. Smashed it in the near post. You could argue he were in better positions yesterday than he was in for that one, and just failed to pull the trigger. So I mean, Gary's got to put a great point up there. But we lost that game through a lack of quality. Simple as. That's so under Chansiri, the team. So simple as that. So under Chansiri, the team won't get much better. Give Danny the tools to do the job. Getting a tad pissed off, looking at other teams with envy. And do you know what I do when I came away from that game yesterday, and when you're driving home, what have you, and you think back, I do think to myself, and is the problem the fact that we, like you're just saying, that like Gary's saying, we haven't got the quality, and we're whinging and moaning about spending £2.5 million on a striker that's as of yet not scored. These teams in this league the team that we just played, spending far more than that, and and all right, they might not also be getting what they want from that player yet. But also, they are spending a lot more money than us as well. So you'd like to think they're bringing in a little bit more quality, or they'd certainly expect to bring more quality in.
Yeah, and that's it. Is ultimately it goes back to the same problem. And I know we all sound like a broken record, just peddling out, well, the chairman's the problem. The chairman is the problem. When you are so solely reliant on one individual completely backing everything that is to do with the financial muscle of the football club, and he is skint, but won't entertain any offers for additional help, additional support, nothing. We are going to struggle to compete against sides where, Zion Fleming signed from Millwall in the summer for Burnley for 4.5 million. He's had roughly the same amount of game time as Ike Ugbo. He's played roughly about the same amount of minutes. He's had roughly the same amount of starts. He hasn't scored either. But you don't hear Burnley fans going up in arms about that. You look at their 2 wingers yesterday in Kelechi Osho, who's a £12 million. He's a £12 million player. He got marked out the game. He got hooked on 60 minutes because he got absolutely nothing out of Marvin Johnson. It is what it is. This is what mid-table championship football looks like, and is going to continue to look like under this chairman until there is either serious investment in the squad or a new owner takes over and we see a completely different way and style of going about recruitment, and we look to do it like Sunderland have done by signing high-end youth prospects, but you've still got to dip your hand in your pocket, which we are we've said it a number of times on here, James, we are a top-end League One budget operating club, somehow miraculously overperforming for where we are. And I know people will say, based off obviously the pod that you did last week surrounding, we're only 2 places further off. We're not this, we're not that. This manager is working miracles and the coaching staff are working miracles, and the playing squad are for most of the games this season are playing either at the level that you would expect or above it. And it's sad that it comes down to money, and it's sad that it comes down to all of that, and you don't get that fairy tale that you get in the early 90s. But that is just football. The Championship is now a mini Premier League thing. Everybody talks about trickle-down effect. The trickle-down effect is exactly what you see yesterday. A £100 million squad lining up against a squad that's been put together for less than 10. Yeah. That's just what it is.
I've heard people calling out Michael Smith, saying he's the problem. Look, that's what we've got. And I'm thinking to myself, Michael Smith is not the problem, and he wasn't the reason why we lost the game yesterday. I mean, there was most people, including myself, thought that Michael Smith would not be playing for Sheffield Wednesday this season. I thought he was off. I thought he was going to be playing somewhere else, and I was quite surprised that he remained a Sheffield Wednesday player. throughout the summer and obviously as the season started. It's not down to he's trying his best, and I do agree that he's probably not a championship player. But the reason why we're having to use him is because we haven't had the funds to sign other strikers to take that position off him, or the players that we've brought in, just aren't quite good enough. Bailey Cadamarteri is deemed not good enough yet, hence why he's gone out on loan. Charlie McNeil clearly not doing anything in training because he's not getting a sniff. Clearly not in. That is one that does worry me a little bit. That Danny's brought him in. He's not sent him out on loan, but neither is he getting any minutes out. He'll play against Brentford. I would imagine. In the cup games. But other than that, not. Ugbo can't. Hit a cow's arse with a banjo at the moment, and there's. Yeah, it's not. Smith is just the other one that has scored this season, all right, and Jamal Lowe as well. But so we're having to use Michael Smith simply because we haven't got the money to spend. Lewis Jordan says it here. The problem massively falls on Chansiri's toes. Yes, he spent money, but the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to a budget, we're light years behind most of the clubs in the Championship. He also goes on to say you could look at it and say we're only mid-table Wednesday. We are because of Danny Roll. Give that squad to any other of our previous managers and they struggle to stay out the bottom four. Yeah, 100%, because Cisco Munoz had the same squad. And look what he did with it. Danny Roll comes in and he, as I mentioned a few times last season, turned water into wine. So, yeah, it's I think Danny Roll's doing his best. I think all the players are trying the hardest. You know what? I don't think the performance yesterday was that bad. It was just, like you said, 2 mistakes which cost us defensively. Give Valerie that ball again, and I don't think he does that. No. The next 90 times, he probably clears it. There is an element of luck, which I'll perhaps talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, I think the crux of it was not good enough 2 mistakes at one end and not good enough at the other end. For me, we had 2 huge chances in the game that we've not taken. The header from Ike Ugbo, which he has to be converting, and the one straight after half-time when it's 1-0. Like that, I thought it was in. I was pretty much waiting. I was waiting for the net to bulge, and celebrating getting back to 1-1. And the game, if either of those chances would have gone in, one, we'd be leading 1-0. I think it's a totally different game because I don't think Burnley were really in it at that point. And 2, if we do peg it back to 1-1, I think they'll be panicking a little bit. The atmosphere would have gone up a couple of notches, which I think it needed it as well. And yeah, we could be talking about a different result today.
We could, and that kind of goes back to that point that you were making just a minute ago, James, about like people's expectations. Did anybody really seriously go to Hillsborough yesterday with a side who could go top, with a side that cost over £100 million to assemble, and look at that being the game this week that you were targeting for 3 points? Surely not. Like, realistically, I mean, like I said just after kickoff, I said I'd bite your hand off for a point against these lot, because yes, it hasn't been great for them from kind of like all different metrics. And, you spoke to really like well on with the Burnley fan, obviously, beforehand. And he was talking about he's trying to temper his expectations a little bit because of how they've been playing. But like I really don't want to make Burnley out like the Man City because they're not. But in this division, when you're spending £100 compared to a squad that's taken less than £10 million to assemble, that is realistically what you're playing. And that is realistically kind of like the difference between the two. Like, what gives anybody the idea that we have any sort of a right to go and turn up and slap that team? Now, I'm not saying you can't make it competitive, which is what we did yesterday. We gave Burnley an incredibly competitive game. And if it had not been for 2 defensive errors, it's a 0-0 game. Like, it is on another day, that is 0-0. We don't take our chances. They don't get a sniff. And it kind of is what it is. It just, it's incredibly frustrating, but it is that tale of the tape is they have 2 golden opportunities and take both of them. We have one early doors, which, as you say, we miss, and it looked easier to score, to be perfectly honest. But again, I know we'll come on to that in a little bit. And then later on in the game, you have Michael Smith, who this is one of the rare times that I will defend Michael Smith because, at League One, I think he's an outstanding player, but I agree with you. He's doing a job for us this year and he's filling a gap because clearly the manager realised he couldn't. He was stunting Bailey Kadamatri's development by just keeping him in the role that Michael Smith has now, and you could argue it's a toss-up between Callum Patterson and Michael Smith for who's going to do that better. You'd argue potentially Michael Smith's touch is a little bit better than Callum Patterson's in those difficult arears. But again, it swings and roundabouts, really, isn't it?
Do you know what? With that though, with Callum Patterson, he might be saying to Danny, like, "Come on, mate! Like these guys aren't doing any better than what than what I can do. Really, give me a chance. Yeah, I might be able to do something. And same with McNeil as well. He might be saying something similar, like at least give me a go." But then it comes down to the fact of like playing two, like I've mentioned the past couple of weeks, of how many players are we going to play in them forward positions before we find it something that clicks. There is an element of you've just got to stick with something and give it a go for a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned Charlie McNeil there as well. I mentioned Charlie McNeil when we originally signed him and said I'd send him out on loan.
Yeah.
Because this is an under-21s player who we've signed to a more long-term contract. Get him out on loan to League Two because he's not proved that he can do it. There was a number of people who said that was a really, I don't want to say stupid, but there was a number of people who said, no, you don't sign a player and then immediately send him out on loan. It would have been really good business. Now, in the benefit of hindsight, it would have been really good business to basically go, no, he's going to come in and we're going to send him out to League One somewhere and he can go and try and earn his stripes and play football and we can actually take an understanding and see what we've got on our hands here. Rather than basically bringing him into Wednesday, him having a blinding 20 minutes at Hull, and then he's done nothing since. And he's absolutely nowhere near this squad at the minute, unless it's a cup game. You mentioned him, like starting at Brentford. Him starting at Brentford, he hasn't done more to warrant, any one of the other attackers that have had minutes. He hasn't done anything to warrant him starting at Brentford over them.
It's just a case of he's played in all the other cup games, so I just think he'll probably just play him just because he's the cup attacking
player.
Midfielder. That's it, innit? Do you know what I mean? It's just like in terms of a rotation thing. Matt, does it come down to confidence? Because not being able to finish his chances in front of goal, it feels like we've not scored. Burnley before yesterday hadn't scored in open play in 270 minutes of football. Whereas we scored 2 against Coventry, we scored 3 against West Brom. All right, we didn't score against Bristol City, but we scored against QPR the week before. We are actually scoring goals. So I suppose this question is a bit strange, but it does feel like that. It does feel like the confidence was really low yesterday.
It's a difficult question, isn't it? Because in terms of actual sky-high confidence, you can't have... I suppose there definitely wasn't many Sheffield Wednesday fans who left that CBS arena or turned off their perfectly legal streams from watching it. But
we're not sponsored by NordVPN anymore, so we can't
not at all. No, so we're fine. There was nobody who will have left or didn't watch that game and been entirely confident about the way that we'd gone about our business just before that international break finished. And even, you can argue, to make an extent, about QPR and Luton as well. Yesterday, I felt that there was a number of times where players tried to take one more touch or tried to take one extra opportunity.
Just
or
one?
Tried... Yeah, I mean, Jedi Gassama is a prime example for this yesterday. I think he realised he hadn't got the pace to beat any of the back line, and he was trying to create that yard of space. And by the time he had, credit to Burnley, they got themselves back into a defensive shape and made a block or a tackle. And that kind of is what happens, isn't it, against those top sides, is unless you are prepared to take those half opportunities that you get and something comes off for you, you're going to be relying on 1 or 2 chances a game to go and win the game or go and take some points from it. And ultimately, we had those 2 chances and both those moments came and passed us by yesterday. Yeah.
I've got to take positives from the fact that, I know they're not now because Sunderland have won today, but I say we matched a team at the top of the league. We didn't because we lost 2-0. I get that, just before people start getting in the comments. But I think over the balance of the game, I know the second half, once they went 2-0 up, it did look quite easy for them. I think they relaxed a lot more and they were just stroking the ball across the back four like it was pretty easy. And I do get that. And I've heard a few Burnley fans talking and, they're saying that they dominated the game. But I think, yeah, it perhaps felt like that in recency bias in the last moments that you'd noticed was very much them passing it around, in that second half. But I feel like over the course of the game, really, they didn't cause us too much, trouble for all the dominance that they were perceived to have, and we could, arguably had probably the best chances to score, really, in the ones that didn't go in, of course. So, so from that, I wouldn't be scared at going to Turf Moor. If we had to play them next week and it were at their place, I'd be like, happy days. On the flip side, if we had to play Leeds next week, based on what we've seen when we've played them the first time around, I would be shitting my pants. So on that, I feel like we've matched them pretty well, and I think we can. I think the performance, other than the result, was good, and this is where we differ from last season, the start of last season, where the performances were shy, there were no idea, no identity, and we're thinking, Christ, where, as much as we can say this now, where we're going to score his next goal based on what happened yesterday, there was like where we're going to get his next chance, last season. So I think we've got to take a lot of positives from it, and if we play like that, I think how we did yesterday, I don't think we'll have any trouble this season at all. And by that, I mean finishing mid-table quite comfortably. Yeah. I mean, we'll pick up more results along the way playing like that than we would have done playing how we were at the start of the season, where we were incredibly open, and it was too, we saw it in the dying embers of the second half yesterday when we completely changed the personnel and we completely shifted the kind of shape. And I know we were chasing the game, but that was much more akin to kind of what we saw over the first part of the season, where centre-backs can play the ball completely through the midfield, and then you've got players straight at your back four or your back five or whatever. Ultimately, I have no problem overall with the performance. And I wasn't coming away from that game yesterday going, oh my word, we've been battered there. Like, we've been played off the park by just simply a much, much better side. I came out thinking, another day, that ends 0-0, or we go 1-0 up and it ends in a draw, or we nick 3 points. It was a game that was just swung on the errors and us not taking our chances. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to read some of the 3-word match reviews. I know I'll do this a little bit later on, but I'm going to do this. Now. At WTID Pod, if you want to follow us on all the socials, just tipped over 15,000 X followers as well, which sounds a bit weird saying that, doesn't it? Twitter, formerly Twitter. As I still see that, in news articles, so and so posted on X. Brackets, formerly Twitter. I think you can drop that now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's been like that for a while, hasn't it? I'll read some of them out. Stuart Gregory has gone striker in January. Neil Dunn said won't define season. I do agree with that one, Matt. Yeah. And I said it before. I think I said it in the preview show as well. Playing Burnley at Hillsborough isn't the be all and end all. That game isn't going to define the season, like Neil's just said. And I did even say, I know it doesn't work like this, but if a defeat meant that we could beat Swansea and beat Portsmouth in the next 2 games, again, I know it doesn't work like that, but they're the more important games, aren't they? Than if you had to target 2 of the 3 games, you're not really going to go for the Burnley one, because we've got more of a chance of getting 3 points out of the next 2. Matt Glossop's gone with bit too good. Ben Robertson says 2 silly goals. He's also gone with not Jan Valery. I think that's in reference to the man of the match that was given to him. Robert said start taking chances. Matt created own downfall. Joseph's not got the memo because he's gone with, we got what we deserve, we didn't do ourselves any favours. Joseph, it is 3 words. So if I take your first 3, we got what? Roger's gone with chances not taken. LJ Whitehouse has gone with Ugbo needs dropping. I'll read a few more out. Stop starting Ugbo, off the pace. Watts rolls 11. Attackers lacking quality. Finish. And James has gone with sign Ugbo Mark 1. Which I agree with. I think for me, like yesterday's game does come down to expectations, and I do feel like some people's expectations are still a tad too high. I suppose beating West Brom at home, who were top of the league and hadn't lost a game all season, and then going to Coventry and beating them, again, maybe the expectations have gone up a notch for a few. I don't feel like my expectations have changed much given those results. For me, I was more relieved in the fact that we've picked up points to get us closer to that mid-table, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, James. I think it's very popular at the minute to just catastrophize everything, and every defeat feels. If you go back 2 seasons, we were talking about this with Lee Lee Gregory on Thursday. Lee, my mate Lee,
Ali.
Yeah, Ali. We were talking with this on Thursday, weren't we, about kind of like the pressure that was around the football club at that time. And I know you've spoke about it a number of times on the pod in terms of that. Every single game there was that weight and relief that was off when you'd won, rather than actually going and enjoying it and celebrating it. This year, West Brom, post that result, that felt like a celebration in terms of there was 3 points that nobody expected us to go and get, and we actually went and got them. Outstanding. Coventry, 94th minute winner. We never get anything at Coventry. That felt like 3 points gained again, rather than sort of like, had we drawn the game, wouldn't have felt like 2 points dropped. This doesn't feel like we've thrown away 3 points. This feels like, on the day, it could have gone either way. It didn't. It went to the side with more quality in it. Like, ultimately, as you've said, our season will not be defined by teams again like Burnley. Our season will be defined by teams who we are playing in the next 2. Can you go and take 4 points from these next 2 games and everything will feel all rosy this time next week, where you've gone and got a result at home to Swansea, say, and you've put in a staunch defensive display away at Fratton Park on a Friday night where, all of the natives will be well up for it. It'll be like every other bastard time that anyone's ever been to Fratton Park, where it's wind whipping, it's freezing, it's, it'll be a horrible, horrible game on Friday. But can you go and put up a show there and take a point? Or can you even go and nick it? Those are the teams that you're looking at realistically at taking points off, and that's where you earn your stripes in this league. And we haven't had many of those games. The long and the short of it is we still haven't had many of those games. Burnley are by anybody's measure a top 6 side this year. We just simply have not had enough of those games yet to make a judgment on where we are going to finish.
Yeah, you look. We've played Sunderland, we've played Leeds, we've played West Brom, we've played Burnley. You know what I mean? We go to Coventry, we beat them. We've we were held at Bristol City, a side that's I would say we're matched with them this season. Yeah. Realistically in terms of where they're going to finish. Yeah, you're right. All right. Millwall is the kind of anomaly in that perhaps that was a really poor performance, but Plymouth, a side that you expect to beat, we went we started the season great and beat them. Yeah, these next 2 are in that same category of teams that you're expecting to go and beat. I think minimum 4 points out of the next 2. All right, I'd take 3. A win and a defeat. I know it's not ideal, but we can't get too ahead of ourselves. And to be fair, I think we're pretty much on. I think we're just a point ahead of that run rate in terms of win a game, lose a game. At the moment, that's what we're doing right now. It is one for you. George has got in touch. He said, controversial 3-word match review, missed Josh Windass. Did we miss Josh Windass? It's a bit of a tongue twister, that one.
Yeah. Yes, from a depth perspective, because if you're not starting Josh Windass, you're bringing him off the bench, and that is significantly better than the options that we bought off the bench yesterday in terms of a replacement. Did we miss him in terms of from a starting 11 perspective? I'm not entirely sure. And this isn't me trying to slate Josh Windass. This is me saying that very much of a muchness in those wider positions. Everybody's pretty much of a similar quality in terms of there's nobody really who is absolutely standout. Now, would I have felt more comfortable in him perhaps showing for the ball a little bit more and maybe dropping into pockets? Yes. Would we have had some of the breakaway opportunities that we had yesterday where the ball's gone down the channel and we've got pace merchants going onto it? Probably not. So again, it's if you're going to try and out-football a side, Burnley are not the side to try and out-football, because I know they're not the side that went up from the Championship a couple of years ago. But we did see yesterday several times where Burnley were very adept at keeping the ball away from us and just taking the sting out of the game when we were building up a head of steam.
I think for me, in answer to that, did we miss him? He's that player that can get something out of nothing. We saw that against West Brom, scoring a speculative effort with that with the header. We've seen it at Blackburn last season. We've seen numerous goals that he's scored where he's not expected to score. And in a game where we've missed so many chances, could Josh Windass have been that one to just instead of Gassama dilly-dallying on the ball and not pulling the trigger, could he have just perhaps done something and scored a goal? We're never going to know. But yeah, it's a great point in it. And as he put on his socials, see you on Tuesday. So he hopefully he'll be back. And I suppose there's no reason not to start him, because as seemingly in every other game this season, none of the forward players have kind of, other than the opening game of the season, none of the forward players have said, I need to start the next game. So why not put Josh Windass back in there? Let's talk about some of the moments in the game then. Let's go back to that Ugbo miss if we have to. First of all, what a ball in from Barry Bannon. Absolute peach of a cross on a plate, and I still don't know how he's missed that. He must have got some sort of 50-pence head, because he's gone straight over the bar, and he has to be scoring there. I'm sorry, but he just has to, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think I will still continue to defend EK Ugbo, because I don't think, aside from that incident yesterday, I don't really think he's had much service to work off this season. Simply put, he has to score, but he'll know that. Like he'll know that. Like, he's 7 yards out, free header. He's the wrong side of the defender, and there's nobody around him. There's nobody anywhere near him. There's nobody touching him. That is anywhere on target. That hits the back of the net.
I think if he just hits him, it goes in.
Yeah, quite possibly. It felt to me like he'd run underneath the ball, if that makes sense. Like it felt like he'd run underneath, like he'd almost got himself there too quickly and had to slow his run down. And by the time that he's actually heading the ball, he's got to kind of like arch his head back. And I suppose, this is the toss-up of a coin between, it is a great delivery from Bannon, but it is also an out-swinging ball. It's not like an in-swinger where you just got to glance it and you just get a flick onto it. And they are much more difficult chances to finish. And I'm not making excuses, because he's got to score. But again, yeah, it was a great delivery in. It's a good run to get himself free. It's an appalling miss, because it's not even close, is it? He's 10, 15 foot over the bar. Like, it's not like it's just grazed the top of the bar or the keeper's had to pull off a worldie. He's put it 10, 15 yards over the bar. It's a shocker, but again, he will know that more than anybody. And it's just a player who is bereft of confidence, because you could see after that, pretty much everything that he tried, it just didn't come off for him, did it? Like, all game.
To be fair, I think that were just most players. Nothing really came off. Nobody were really on the same wavelength when it mattered. Come the final third. That killer pass just didn't quite come off. Every bounce was were going the way of Burnley, which was so frustrating. But yeah, I think taking the positives, the delivery was wonderful. I mean, not something that we've seen much of this season, but again, it goes back down to set pieces and finishing chances from set pieces, which we just seemingly this season seem to struggle with, to be honest. But yeah, I feel like at that point though, we were on top. They had an early chance. They got in behind, didn't they? And then they had a shot which quite a tame effort, I think, really, which didn't really trouble us. But other than that, after that, there was probably like 5, 6, 7 minutes where it was Burnley. After that, it was all Wednesday, really. We were controlling it, and actually not just passing it around and doing nothing with it. We were creating chances. I think was it Valentin put one across, which Gassama just couldn't quite get his toe end on it, which again looked, from my vantage point, down near the Cop end on the north. You're thinking, how's he not got anything on that one? Again, just needed a touch, and just not quite getting there.
No, we'll come on to it obviously in a bit with Paul Valentin. Another.
You're doing my trick there.
Sorry, James. Yeah, I know. It's one of those where, again, I don't look at the forward in those instances. I always look at the delivery. And don't get me wrong, it is a good ball. He's 3 yards, 4 yards in front of him. Like he's got, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. He's not getting there. He's not getting to that ball.
He doesn't look up, by the way.
No, and we'll come on to a more glaring opportunity that, again, this is going to sound like I'm slating him for the next couple of misses in terms of like the delivery, but it's that quality delivery into the box that, we saw for the EK Ugbo miss. There were a couple of opportunities where that final ball, and Danny cited it in his post-match press conference as well. That final ball yesterday either didn't come or wasn't good enough. And,
it's just about like taking a moment in it. Do you know what I mean? Just to have a quick look up, and we're talking about second tier of English football here as well. These players are paid, between £5,000 and £15,000 a week, maybe in that sort of bracket. They're paid a hell of a lot of money to do that job, and you should be able to run, quick glance up, a look over, and then be able to put a delivery in. There is also an element of if you've been told to put it in that area, you don't need to look, and it's down to the strikers to time their run to get there. But I felt obviously as the game goes on and you start missing more chances. At the time, the first one, I just thought, it's just close. But once you lose a game, you do kind of micro-analyse every single decision that you've made.
And also, James, the amount of chances that we create a game, you're bound to, as a fan, micro-analyse every single opportunity that goes by, because we don't create bucket loads of chances, do we? We create 1 or 2 gilt-edged chances a game, which if we don't take, we're then relying on half chances, which is pretty much kind of everything that we're sort of discussing this evening, bar the EK Ugbo one and the Michael Smith one on the, got like rubbish time with 95 minutes on the clock. But every other one is pretty much, they're a half chance, or the delivery's not quite right, or the run's not quite there, or there's always just something. And it sounds so boring, doesn't it? But it just goes back to that point at the top, is that's what quality buys you. You go to Burnley's first goal, there was not one person in Hillsborough who, when Jayden Anthony broke free, that anybody thought, he's going to miss here. Yeah. There wasn't one thought. It was literally, he's 5 yards the other side of the defender. Well, this is in. End of discussion. There's no he's gonna fluff his lines here, or he's gonna do something. He literally just dinks it into the bottom corner, and it's those moments in it.
I was just about to say, you were talking about gilt-edged chances and stuff. There's one sure way of scoring a goal, and that's just, or certainly conceding a goal, just gift them a chance like that one. The ball comes over, doesn't it? And I don't think is he unsighted or something like that. I'm not too sure. Top and bottom, he's got to deal with it. He doesn't. He kind of he gets caught in two minds and just absolutely fluffs it, doesn't he? And then it kind of goes back to me point about the luck element. It just fell kindly for their forward who runs onto it, and as you just rightly mentioned there, just slots it in the bottom corner. I know Beadle looked a bit frustrated, perhaps with himself, perhaps thought he could have done a little bit better, but when it's a one-on-one, you always back the striker to put it away, unless it's a Sheffield Wednesday player, of course, in which case it's always the goalkeeper's ball, without a shadow of a doubt. But as I mentioned earlier, I feel like it was just disappointing that we gave that chance away. However, one positive from a fan's perspective is how we responded after going 1-0 down. It wasn't fucking hell, whatever. It was, come on, lads. There was a bit of an applause, weren't there, after, to try and gee him up a little bit, which I thought was quite encouraging.
Yeah, because I think as fans, we recognise that it's not carved apart. It's, the ball's fired in from a centre-back into just an area. And it's probably, that's one of those that you hit and you probably sit there going, for fuck's sake. And you can't believe that you've under-hit it so badly. Again, being kind to Jan Valery, the ball dips just before it gets to him. Like it's not a well-struck ball. It's moving in the air a little bit. But again, you're right. He's got to deal with it. Again, for me, could you argue that as a defender, you've got to be tracking that runner who's going in behind as well? Yeah, maybe. But when it falls to him, you're not expecting Jan Valery to miss it. But I suppose, again, that goes back to that. Should you as a defender always be thinking the worst case scenario rather than the better? And then when he goes clean through, Like, it is just what it is, isn't it, really? Like, he runs across Beadle. I think Beadle does well to close the angle down, but it's just a really well-taken goal. But as you rightly say, the reaction from the fans was very much, at the time, come on, we can get back into this. And there was, that ripple of applause, that big come on from sort of like everybody, because everybody had known, as you can see, we were more than in that game at that point in time, more than in that game. And you could see that there were chances that could be created there as well.
Yeah. Going to straight after half time, you've kind of already alluded to it a little bit already, but kind of much like the Ugbo chance, we have to score there. How Valentin doesn't find a man is absolutely beyond me. I mean, Valentin is the flavour of the month at the moment, and people wax lyrical about him and about the position he got in and everything else, and the fact he had that chance that we've already spoke about in the first half. But you have to make it count when you get into those positions, and that's kind of my frustration with him. And it always has been that there is no end product. I know you could throw that tag at quite a lot of our players so far this season, certainly the creative ones. But I don't want to be bashing him, a bit like what you said earlier, but I don't really understand the love for Paul Valentin. I know he tries and everything, and I get that, and maybe I'm asking a little bit too much of him, I guess, but he has improved. I'm not going to say that he hasn't, because he wasn't doing anything like this when he first signed for us last season. However, he gets into them fantastic positions, and you've just got to take a second. I don't know. Am I being harsh on Valentin? Because you could argue these Kabatsky and Ugbo that are in the box waiting for that ball. Could they perhaps have done a little bit more?
I don't think you're being harsh on him. I think the flavour of the month tag is very much down to the fact that he runs fast and works hard. Like, I'm all for all of the good work beforehand that he does. It's a misplaced pass that goes from him into Jenny Gassama, who then, I think it's Shea Charles who picks it up and plays the ball down the line. He then does really well to get in behind the defender. Realistically, he could go down in the box when there's a touch on him, because there is a touch on him. He doesn't. He gets to the 6-yard area, and he is dead level with the keeper with acres of space around him, and his head is up. Like, he is looking at where the players are. Both forwards have made a move. Both of them have made a move. Kabatsky's coming to the near post. Ike Ugbo has gone to the near post but peeled off. The defensive positioning from Burnley is good, as you'd expect. But if you were also Paul Valentin, just stop. Literally just stop on that 6-yard line and force one of them to make a decision, either the keeper or one of the centre-halves, and make your forwards do some more work. That is what we saw last year when we were creating those kind of opportunities, is players slow down in those key moments. We very rarely see the level of composure that we saw at Sunderland from Paul Valentin, where he gets into that area, slows himself down, looks up, finds a man and picks him out with a pass.
Yeah.
What we saw yesterday is he gets into that position and just smashes the ball into an area which actually is not about 5 yards in front of where Ike Ugbo is, and is it so hard that Olaf Kabatsky's got no chance of getting a touch on it. You can make an argument that if either him or the defender gets a touch on it, it goes in. I'd argue you've got to be smarter than that. Like, you have to recognise how much time and space you've got, because again, in real time it felt like, how have neither Kabatsky or Ike Ugbo got on the end of that? How have neither of them got to that? How have neither of them picked that out? But when you actually go back and watch the extended highlights, watch what Valentin does and how much time he's got to pick out a pass. And he just simply does not do it. Time and time again, that is too much consistently of what we see. And actually, his reaction is the biggest tell. His reaction of when that ball goes across the box and he's then behind the goal off the line, his head's in his hands and he's smashing the floor, because he knows he's not picked out the right pass.
Yeah, I think one thing you perhaps could say, and it comes back to Ugbo and his lack of confidence, the goal he scored against Birmingham at Hillsborough when Paveda pulled it back was pretty much a similar sort of situation. And in that one, he goes kind of towards the 6-yard box, then pulls back, and the defender carries on going, and then he's in space, pulls it back to him, and he stood still, and he just sweeps the ball in. I feel like perhaps both Kabatsky and Ugbo both went to the went to the 6-yard box, and I don't know, as it obviously you don't know what's going to happen at the time, do you? Because God, I'm getting all the names wrong now, aren't I? Paul Valentin, sorry. As he picks the ball up and goes into the box, maybe they're not expecting him to take 2-3 touches or however many it is before he pulls it across, and by that point you've ran out of room to move. But it all happens so quickly as well, and I suppose the difference is I'm talking about a player there, Paul Valentin, and a Jan Paveda, total different skill set, and one of them makes the game look a lot easier than the other one, and but I do also think it's just a culmination of a few different things in confidence as well. But honestly, I thought that was going to be a goal. I would have thought that would have been a fantastic reaction to to start in the second half to creating that sort of chance. And I kind of knew at that point, the fact that we'd missed that chance earlier on in the first half, or a couple of chances, and then missing this one, I just knew there and then that this is not going to be our day. How many times you miss a big chance and then the team go down the other end and score? I know they didn't go straight down the other end and score, but they did score a goal, which again was a bit of a mistake, weren't it? Bernard steps up, it doesn't get contact on the ball and leaves an absolute gaping hole that they just run into. I think initially Beadle does really well with the save. We were talking about one-on-ones and stuff. Maybe Valerie could have done a little bit better with his half challenge that he tried to put in. But then again, the ball just lands straight to their man, and I'm just like, when they scored it, I was literally like, what? Like, this game is, like I mentioned, we're just not destined to win this game whatsoever.
No, and I mean, going back to Deschamps Bernard to begin with, he's touch tight to Zion Fleming. It's a good dummy, like it is a good dummy. But again, I'd argue Deschamps Bernard is too close to him. But I think he's
done that before, hasn't he? Was it Leeds where he did that? I want to say there was certainly one at home where he's done something similar.
That to me reads it's more of a directive from a coaching perspective than it is from a player point, in terms of if the ball goes into a forward, you need to be there or thereabouts with him. But again, the error is going to fall down to him. In terms of Jan Valery, I think he does well to not bring Fleming down. He does enough to kind of force him to take another touch and send him close to the keeper. James Beadle does well to make the save, but I could argue that he probably needs to come out a little bit quicker in terms of to make him make a decision, like recognising that contact's going to be made from Jan Valery and getting right on his toes, which I think we saw from James Trafford in the first half with Jedi Gassama. Yeah. Ultimately, I think James Beadle is a better goalkeeper than James Trafford, but in those key moments yesterday, James Trafford made the right decision. It is a good save from James Beadle, and as you say, it then just falls to Brownhill, who doesn't make great contact with the ball, and I think it's Jan Valery is half a step off getting a block in. It hits Famewo on the line as he tries to clear it. There's an argument there to be made that if Famewo just stands there and lets it hit him, it doesn't go in. He's trying to do the right thing in terms of skying it clear and actually just ends up shanking it off his shin into the back of the net. It's just
you have to laugh, don't you, when you see it, because it's just... It's not for the want of trying, and it's not down to, all right, there was a mistake with Bernard, but it was just literally anything that could have gone wrong in that sequence did go wrong, in terms of, the challenge perhaps could have been a bit better. Like I said, the save could have gone anywhere, but it lands straight to the guy's foot. He fluffs it, which is great. He's not rifled it into the top corner. He's fluffed it, giving you a chance. And then probably because he fluffs it, that means that Famewo's all, tied up and falls over and can't clear it, and it's just like, really, like, is it that he just summed up the game for me. He just summed up how the game had gone, in that, like I said, everything we touched turned to shit, and everything that they touched seemingly just went the right way. I mean, in terms of the look, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later on, but I felt yesterday, there was one where Johnson, is down near the cop, and their player just comes across and blocks it, and it goes out for a corner, but seemingly not. It's a goal kick. That one was bizarre. There was one where Beadle keeps the ball in. It's on the extended highlights. I don't know if he quite keeps it in or not, looking on the second chance, but that's then a corner. There's one where it definitely went out for a goal kick, but apparently he didn't, and they played on. Answer me this one. If we kick the ball at the referee, obviously now it's a drop ball. I didn't know if it's a new rule, but apparently the ball gets given to the opposition when that happens. Is that right?
I'm assuming, James, you're referring to the EK Ugbo header where he just finds the referee after 2 players go down with a head injury.
No, there was both. There was two. There was two. There was that one, and then there was the other one earlier on where we kicked it into the referee, and because that one that you're on about there, when he went down with a head injury, was the referee just stopped the game, and then gave it to them. And then the other one was when the ball hit the referee, and we kicked it at him. But apparently, if that happens, the opposition have the ball. Do you know what it is actually? Knowing that happens, pick the ball up, and whoever's got the ball when the referee stops the game, the referee will give that team. Yeah, because on both occasions, Burnley had the ball in their hands when they gave it to the referee, and he didn't have a clue who had possession.
No, and there was one which you were referring to, which was a corner as well. Was one of their centre halves just passed it back to their keeper, and everybody just kind of went, "Oh yeah, well that's a goal kick then." And everyone in the stands was going, "No, it's not. It's a corner." But because there was no protestation on the pitch, because this is something that I'm kind of glad that we do from a perspective of you don't want to set a bad example for kids and all the rest of it. There's lots of kids watching.
Fuck the kids.
But yeah. If you are looking at it from a perspective of gamesmanship, nastiness, just smart play, you've got to get around him. You've got to get in his face. You've got to scream for decisions. I'm thinking, all right, we should never have had a penalty yesterday. There was no set in stone. But I don't see any players appealing on the pitch for any of the decisions. I hear it from the stands, but I don't see any. There was one which was maybe a 50-50 on Jeddy Gassama, where he got the wrong side of the defender, and the defender seemed to get his legs tangled up around him, but you could argue that he's lost the ball. I don't see 3, 4, 5 players screaming over to the ref and demanding to hear a bit more about that decision. You see a player on the floor throw his arms up and everybody else just gets on with the game.
I'm telling you now, Jeddy Gassama will not win a penalty whilst ever he plays at Sheffield Wednesday. Not a cat in hell's chance. No. He goes down far too easily, and it's just... Yeah, even a Stonewaller, he'll make it look like it's not a penalty. To be honest, that's just him. I mean, there's also another one that apparently if you pick your player up and chuck him over your shoulder, WWE style, whilst you're off the pitch, apparently that's just fair game and just carry on, because that's not a yellow card either, which I found absolutely bad. The fact that he did not even book that player is beyond me. Really, I was just astounded. But again, we didn't lose the game because of the referee. I just found it funny that all these decisions seemingly didn't go our way. And sometimes people can listen in and go, yeah, but we had a few. I genuinely don't think we had any decisions that could have gone. There might have been one potentially, but the vast majority of them was just funny. Do you know what? The one with when it hit the referee, I knew he was going to give the ball to them. I just knew it, and when it happened, I would just I would say disbelief, but I just proclaimed to saying that I knew it was going to happen. But anyway,
it goes back to what you were saying at the top, James. Of we could be playing that game until next Saturday, and still not scored, and still not got any of the decisions, and it'd still be 2-0. We could just carry on playing that game over and over again, and it's just one of those days where it's just not your day. That includes those type of 50-50 decisions as well. Where that the Marvin Johnson one, where he was rugby tackled off the pitch and then went down injured, and he was lying on the floor, and then the player ran off into the box, because I'm sure it went to a corner for us, and the player ran off into the box.
Yeah, it did.
You could see the referee had no idea who he was supposed to be speaking to, because he went over to check on Marvin Johnson, looked up, and that player's not just still there, waiting for him. That player's done what's the smart thing and run back into the box. And then he just kind of went, I'm assuming, he just kind of took one look at it and went, I don't know who this is. Right, okay, so we'll just play on here. We'll just play on, because I've got no idea who it was.
If that's the case, surely he's got 3 other people that are in contact with him that you can say surely there's a liner, you'd be like, that's number 17, that. But yeah. Anyway, as an aside, on a tangent here, I know on a previous Extra Time we spoke about kind of fascinations and irritations of football. If you're listening to Football Cliches podcast, that's exactly where I got that idea from. Another one happened yesterday. Do you want me to tell you what it is?
Go on.
It's when two players of the same squad number tackle each other. It happened twice yesterday. It happened twice. It happened what is it? Valentine's number 13, isn't it? Is that right? I've not made that up.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe.
Is it number 13? Anyway, Paul Valentine and whoever played. What made it even more miraculous is that the two players play on the opposite sides to each other. They were both left backs. There was a moment where they were both tackling each other, and I found that great. And it happened again when Ingleson came on and he was tackling. Is Brownhill there, number 8?
Yes.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both tackled each other, and I just think it's great when both backs are facing me, and you see two number 8s tackling each other. Paul's 14. Oh, do you know what? I was going to say 14, but who's 13? Is that,
do you know
Patterson?
No, yes,
Patter's
Callum
13,
Patterson.
isn't it?
Yeah. The other one that I think is a bit of a fascination for me, and you'll have more of an answer for this than me, is sitting on the south stand. Obviously, umbrellas and shades are out and all the rest of it because.
Hey, I needed a cap on the north.
Now,
Christ.
this is my thing. The amount of people who sit there with their hand over their face, blocking the sun, rather than thinking, "Hang on, this happens every year. Why don't I just take a cap or some sunglasses? Like, why don't I do
Matt,
something
you can
that's
fuck
going
off
to
because
mitigate?"
that's me. That's me.
Yeah. But why? Because every single time this point of year that the sun is going to be dazzling in your eyes. Why for the? Oh my God!
Shall I tell you why, Matt? Shall I tell you why? Because I took my lad to football on Saturday morning and then my daughter to dancing, and it were fucking pissing it down. I did not expect to go to the match and have the sun in my eyes. So we got there and we walked onto the north, and me and Steve just went, "Oh fucking hell."
Can't see a thing. Can't see a bastard thing.
And the sun was well high up as well, like for 3 o'clock, and you're thinking that's not going to disappear. There was a moment where the clouds went in. I thought, oh, thank God for that. Went in behind the clouds. But I spent the vast majority of my time either with my retinas burned onto the back of my eyes, or being that person that's got my hand up like this trying to block the sun.
Honestly, James, next don't get just in your jacket. Don't care what the weather's like before. Just stick a cap or a set of sunglasses in that jacket, just to make sure that you've got something, because you can see, like, it does just make me laugh. Like, sat at kickoff, and like ball goes up towards the other side of the pitch, and it goes up into the air, and you see everybody raise their hands up to their head because they're looking for where the ball's coming down in the sky. It does make me laugh.
I'm not being funny. Kevin's just said there. Kevin sits next but one. He sits next to Steve's. But glad you held your hand up, James. You did say that. And I also said that if they had anything about them, they should sell caps on the north stand, because I'm not being funny. Like if you got there and you've done exactly what I've done and not brought one. If they were a tenner, I mean, the problem is they wouldn't be a tenner, would they? Be Chancery,
no, 25 quid.
And rest. £65 for a baseball cap with a Pulis style with the badge sewn on it or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, if they were a cap for a tenner, I would have bought one. 100%. But I'm annoyed with myself. Thing is as well, the caps don't really suit me, but I think I might have to have an emergency one in the car or something like that. And anyway, I was going to talk about player performances and individual player performances, but I'm going to go on to a few of the stats, and then we're going to talk about the new sponsor that we have, a new flash sponsor on the front of the shirt, and then we'll talk a little bit about the two upcoming games that are coming up. In terms of stats, things that stood out for me, Smith registered 4 shots after coming off the bench on 72 minutes. Ugbo managed just 1 for perspective. Neither player hit the target, though, which is a little bit
sounds about right.
Yeah. Shea Charles, 6 tackles and 2 interceptions, more than anyone on the pitch yesterday, and looked great in the international break as well.
Yep, more than in a game where he looked absolutely shattered. like because he's played back-to-back 90 minutes since the last international break, and then he's played best part of two 90 minutes for Northern Ireland. Imagine all of our shock that his quality still shines through because he's a £10 million player. And he was in a two-man midfield against a side where they several times loaded the centre of the park trying to find space. I mean, I thought he looked tired and leggy yesterday. I would argue the same about Barry Bannon, who was sat next to him, who looked tired yesterday and looked like I know he's not been away on international break, but also looked tired. But I can't say I was surprised by Shea Charles's performance yesterday. He's just a class operator, I just
want to make a point as well. I think taking them both off when Danny Reel did was a smart move.
Yes,
there's a chance that we can come back from 2 goals down and salvage something from the game. In reality, it was a very slim chance of doing that. And you've got to look at the next games. At 2-0 down, you can all but say the game's pretty much done and dusted. You have got players off the bench that could probably do something as well. Let's not overexert them. I mean, Shea Charles was on a booking as well. Let's not forget, he could have easily, them tear arsing through like they did on a few occasions. All it takes is a little nick and he's down, and next minute he's off, and we miss him for the Swansea game. So yeah, very smart move to take both of them off. Even though at the time it did look, perhaps it was a bit of a shock. Ingleson attempted 6 crosses yesterday as well. Does that shock you? That was more than anyone as well. And again, he came off the bench.
The quality of them is what I would question again, because I can chuck 6 crosses in from sat on the south stand if I really tried to kick it hard, but it doesn't mean that any of those deliveries are going to be any good. There was one that I can think from a corner, which Michael Smith put the header wide from 7 yards out. Aside from that, I'm pleased that he crosses the ball. I am pleased that he crosses the ball, but that doesn't mean that there's any quality in it. Just getting those... This sounds horrible, and it sounds like I'm digging players out again, but stat padding for stat padding's sake, he's been on the pitch for 30 minutes and he put 6 deliveries in. I would argue that one of them is quality, and it's a dead ball. The rest of them are all right, but again, how many of them are creating a quality chance? Not many, I would argue.
Yeah, and also it's now 4 games without a win against Burnley at Hillsborough and only 1 win in our last 10.
Yeah, which I think if you're going for the recent stuff, they've been a Prem club for the majority of the last 10 years. And the last time they were in this league, they absolutely walked it. I said it earlier on, they will be there or thereabouts come the end of the season, because that is the way that they are set up. Aside from the squad that we saw yesterday, it's an incredibly well-run football club as well, Burnley. They see value in players from a number of different areas, and when that value has peaked or even approaches being kind of reached, they shift and get rid and get somebody else in, and they turn over a large number of players but replace them with quality. It's ultimately, yes, it's a much smaller football club than Sheffield Wednesday, but it's light years ahead on and off the pitch at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's get on to the new sponsor then. That was announced last week. What was your first impression? Because for me, purely from an aesthetic point of view, it's better than them down the road.
Yeah,
but that's about it. But it has got me thinking. Whenever any sponsor that we have had, because I looked over the ones that we've had over recent years. Obviously, we had Sanderson for about 55 years. It certainly seemed that way. We've had Gilders, we've had Chupa Chups, we've had who else have we had? One Disco, Napoleon's Casinos, etc. I just think it's very difficult to make a sponsor on a football shirt look good on a blue and white striped shirt.
Yes.
I've just come to that conclusion. I just don't think any really look that good.
No, I would agree with you. My first impression of it wasn't about the aesthetics of it. My impression of it on first look was, why now? Why now? Why midway through October now have we been able to go and attract a club sponsor? Similar to last year where we had a sponsor midway through and then all of a sudden that swapped to Serrata and that was a shit logo. Why now?
Because if you think about it, they're not going to be paying a lot of money because sure, they're only on. All right, they're on the telly and they're on the front of the shirts when you're playing, but they're not on all them shirts that they've sold already that everyone's walking around wearing, which surely is much better advertising from that, from a business point of view.
Yep, absolutely. It reeks to me of there's something unpaid coming up. That's why that was ultimately my first thought about it when we had that, when we paraded them round on the pitch and holding up a shirt with sort of like these two of their employees and one from the club all holding this shirt up very awkwardly. My overriding feeling was, why now? Why all of a sudden now has this company come out of the woodwork and has been desperate to sponsor us? Like, surely this offer was there at the start of the season. Surely. It's not just that company has come into some money during quarter 3. They've had a fantastic quarter 1, 2 and 3, and now they're deciding, do you know what? Yeah, now's the opportunity.
Well, I've had a look. I don't think they have had a fantastic any quarter anywhere, to be honest. I looked on their accounts, and I don't confess to be any sort of an accountant before anyone says anything. From what I can work out, 12 grand they've got in the bank, 116,000 in net liabilities. So yeah, I think you're probably right when you say that there's probably some unpaid bill coming. Unless we could have done the smart thing and asked for the money up front. I don't know whether we have done that or whether we haven't, but Azerbaijan Land of Fire and A-Up come to mind in terms of lucrative sponsorship deals that we've had. And also as well, people are listening, don't think that these sponsorship deals are worth £1, £2, £3 million. They're not. To sponsor the front of the shirt, I bet you it's going to be less than $500,000. I bet, and I'm probably being generous at that point. I'm very, very generous. It's probably, I bet they've paid 50 grand right now because it's not really worth that much, is it really? Like, no, because it's not on the shirts that they're selling. No. I mean, I could be miles off it there, but what point I'm making, it's not in the millions. Put it that way.
No, I mean, I've noticed that Daniel's put in the chat about, he's noticed that the sponsor has sponsored Leeds in the past and Huddersfield and has put money into the stadium and the training ground improvements. Marvellous. I'm really pleased if that is the case. Like, genuinely, that there is some sort of money that has gone into, from the club, money has come into the club and they have used that money to go into improvements around the place. I just don't think that's how we do business. I think this is to do with Chansiri is out of money and he's flying too close to a wire for something, and somebody's come in and offered him, let's double what you said at 50 grand. Let's say it's £100,000, and he's gone, yep, absolutely, we'll take that, not a problem. It won't be on any of the shirts that go out or are sold in the megastore, but you can buy a print on and you can stick it on yourself, which no fucker will do. Or it'll just be on the match day stuff, like, and that's kind of like what you'll have to put up with. It's who else, like, aside from companies who are, I don't want to say desperate, but companies who can either get it at a cut price or are somewhat desperate, who else is going to risk putting the name of their business next to the clown upstairs? Like, who else is going to do that? Like, no sane businessman. Yes, being associated with Sheffield Wednesday, 100%. I agree that is a sound financial investment from the perspective of, it's a very well-respected and well-established club. It's one of the founding members of the Premier League, and I'm sure you can shift that to some sponsor somewhere. We're one of the oldest football clubs in the world. Like, I'm sure all of that means something. But you've still got to deal with the prick upstairs, and you've still got to get a business deal over and past him, and he's the one who's got to sign off on it. Why now, and why would you do this with us? And that is, I sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist here, but it's like any external money that comes into the club from somebody, I just sit there and think, unless you're a fan, why? Like, why?
Do you know
would
what?
You
as
do
well, it sounds like we're both being really pessimistic about this news and everything, and yes, we probably are, but I feel like we're well within his rights to do so, because 99% of the time it's not. It's never a positive. Like, when these things happen, we signed a sponsor, last season. the earliest we've ever signed one. We had on the when we just beaten Barnsley, and it was A up was all on the shirt, and everyone was like, what's happened here?
Yeah.
And we had the new shirt with the new sponsor on it, and that we'd done it mega soon. Next minute we find that that's all corrupt, and he shouldn't have done that, and the money wasn't there, and everything else. And you're like, it's like. We're damned if we do and damned if we don't, really. There's always something about, it'll come out that this money's, they're involved in money laundering or something like that, and they've been locked up for 25 years or something. That's probably what will happen next. Like, it always does, doesn't it? But, I mean, like I put on me on the Twitter post, great. If it's extra revenue coming into the club, I can't knock the club for trying to do that, but just try and do it a little bit sooner next season. Guess what? Work on next season's sponsor now.
Just get it in place. Just get it in place, ready for the kits, like for a kit being launched. Like it's not fucking rocket science, is it? Like how easy would this be to have agreed a 2 or 3 year contract with them, like we did with Host and Stay, when we were down in League One. How easy was it then to just organise a 2-year deal? And that's kind of, it's what you're going to get. And that's who's going to sponsor you. Now, it's like, right, well, we'll wait until October. And then we'll realise that we need some money coming in because nothing's coming in. So we'll just offer it out again and somebody can pay it. It's just, on top of the game yesterday, it was just another incredibly frustrating thing to come out of Sheffield Wednesday in the last, week or so.
Now, obviously, when it comes to kind of aesthetics and things like that, how the kit looks, I'll be honest, I think the logo looks a bit crap on the home shirt. I don't think the colours really go. However, I think if they have them sort of gold colours, it might look all right on the away kit. On the third kit, on the black one, I think that'll look all right. Or maybe if they change their colour to more of a white or a kind of light silvery grey. And I think again, if they on the away kit, on the orange kit, if the logo's all black like a silhouette, I think that'll look quite good as well. Don't just put the same logo on. I know obviously it's all about the brand and stuff like that, but I do like it when brands do actually change the colours of their logos to suit or match the colour of the kit. So if they do that on the other two kits, happy days. I think that'll look all right. As I kind of alluded to earlier, I don't think any sponsor looks any very nice on any blue and white striped shirt. And someone said on Twitter, only if you put a white box around it. Then I thought, what, like Napoleon's Casino? Like that's not too sure really. But
no, but it's the only way to make it stand out, isn't it? Is the only way to make it prominent or to stand out. Or you have all black lettering like we had with, we go back to Sanderson. Like you have all black lettering and block colours, and it makes it really easy and distinguishable and recognisable. Anything like this is nicest will in the world. It's just going to get lost a little bit, which is a shame for a company who have taken good money out of their accounts and their business to go and sponsor a club. Which is a bit of a shame, but ultimately, if it means that knobhead's name isn't on the front of the shirts when anything good happens, I'm fine.
Yes, 100%. Right, let's look ahead to the next two games then. We've got Swansea coming up on Tuesday at home, another home game, double header, and then we make the long trip to Portsmouth on Friday night. We're in front of the Sky cameras, under the lights. Swansea on Tuesday. No win in the last 4. Only 1 goal in those last 4 games as well. Lost 1-0 to Blackburn last time out this weekend. How do you see this one going on Tuesday? I don't really want a score prediction just yet, but it's a game that we've got to look to be taking all 3 points on Tuesday.
You should be taking 3 points from this, which means that it's going to be easy score prediction, James. 2-0 Swansea. It's a difficult week. It's three games in 6 days, so it is a difficult week. But this is the one that you should be targeting for your 3 points, and this is the one that I'm sure the playing squad and the coaching staff and will have targeted as the one that you need to go and take 3 points from. The no win in the last 4 and only 1 goal doesn't breed any form of confidence from a Swansea perspective. They'll bring one man and his dog because it's a Tuesday night and fucking hell is Swansea a long way. It's the type of game that you have to win 1-0. Like, you have to find a way to just grind out a 1-0 win and use your squad. You don't want to be in that game with 70 minutes gone and it be 0-0 and you having to leave your first choice 11 out there to try and scrap for 3 points.
Well, it's a great point you make there in terms of like the 1-0 because Blackburn 1-0, Swansea, Stoke 0-0. They went to our dear friends down the road and lost 1-0. Bristol City was 1-1. They beat Coventry, but again by one solitary goal, 2-1. They beat Norwich 1-0. Lost to West Brom. Guess what the score was?
1-0.
1-0, yeah. 1-1 against Cardiff, and they actually scored 3 goals in one game right at the start of the season, beat Preston 3-0. Opening game of the season, they lost to Middlesbrough. Have a guess?
1-0.
It was 1-0, yes. A lot. So if you're a betting man, begambleaware.org, put a 1-0 on, I think. Let's just hope it's a Wednesday 1-0 win. But seemingly their games are quite tight. They're just getting on the wrong end of a few defeats, seemingly at the moment. Clearly can't score a great deal, but they're not really conceding that many either. But we said that about Burnley, didn't we? The only difference being, I don't think Swansea are going to have the same level of quality, and hopefully we're not going to give Swansea those gilt-edged chances, really. And I think it's go on,
James. No, go. I was just going to say, I think they'll have a lot of the ball because they've gone back with Luke Williams. They've gone back to that style of wanting to dominate possession. So I think the way in which that we have been successful over the last number of games by relinquishing control of the ball and breaking on teams, I think is the way to go. This to me reeks of, do you remember Plymouth last year at home, Tuesday night, and we won 1-0? Jedi Gassama bundled one over the line. It reeks of that type of game. Like, there's not going to be much in it. There's not going to be much quality on show. It's going to be a game of very few chances, and you have to take one when it arrives at your door.
Look, if Gassama wants to bundle one over the line again, I'll happily take that. Look, we're not in them realms of we'll take one off someone's arse, but I do feel like you've got 3 games in 6 days. Sorry, just get a win and let's just move on to the next one and let's just amass them points that we need to make us look a little bit more comfortable. Let's say. But you mentioned their gaffer Luke Williams comes from the Russell Martin school of football, doesn't he? So I think obviously Russell Martin was at Swansea as well, weren't they? So they've kind of they left that train of thought and went with the lad
Michael Duff.
Michael Duff, and now they've gone back to that sort of style. And I spoke to the Swansea podcast the other day as well before the Burnley game, but you can listen to that over on Patreon if you do want to head over there and hear what the Swansea fan was saying. And it was a bit downbeat, to be fair. He wasn't he wasn't expecting a great deal. Obviously that was before they got beat 1-0 by Blackburn as well, so they're probably not worrying, but 4 games without a win, they need to pick up some points and quick. And I suppose looking at their fixtures that they've got coming up, they've got Millwall at home. They travel to Oxford, and they've got Watford as well. So they've got some games where they don't want to be losing too many more because they're games that they'll be targeting for points as well. And then they've got Burnley and Leeds coming up. So
And we should, realistically, we should have beaten Swansea last year as well. Like, we should have beaten Swansea at home back end of the season where it finished 1-1. George has put in the chat, it was like watching a chess match at times last year in that particular fixture. Realistically, this is the game of the week that you have to win. Like, this is the one that, again, I've mentioned it before, that you should be targeting. This is the one that you have to take 3 points from. And if you can go then with that pressure off on Friday night down to Portsmouth, you can take a point down there and run to the bank with it. Because, Portsmouth, I know we're coming on to them in a second. Portsmouth, I think Portsmouth are still in that battle at the minute of where it's very plucky and there's a lot of fight in all of their games. They don't seem to get, even if they get battered, there's still a lot of fight in their games.
Yeah.
But I do think that I do think that that's going to be more of a test than, say, for argument's sake, Swansea on Tuesday night.
What is your prediction then for Swansea on Tuesday?
Swansea 1-0 Wednesday. 1-0, yeah, it'll be 1-0 Wednesday. I got not a fucking clue who is going to score. Like, genuinely, I would love to say whoever is given that centre forward shirt is going to score. Yeah. But if it's Michael Smith from the start, I don't see Michael Smith scoring from the start. Do you know what? Let's go left field here. I think Jamal Lowe will score at some point.
Okay, fair enough. I was going to go 1-0, but I'm not going to have the same as you, so I'll go for a 2-0 win. I can see us beating Swansea. I think if we play anything like how we've played in the last couple of games, you could even stretch that back to Luton. Really, I think we'll have more than enough to beat Swansea, and we'll want a reaction. I think. I don't think we need much of a reaction. We just need to put a shooting boots on, I think, and I think we'll be enough. Goals are going to come. Barry Bannon's going to score. I'll put him down as first goal scorer. Why not? Portsmouth then. Something's happened this weekend, which I'm glad of. Portsmouth have won a game, because if they did not won on the weekend, and had they not won on Tuesday, that meant that they would have 100% beaten us, because Charity FC would have been rolling into town. So I'm glad that they've got that monkey off the back, and they have actually won the first game of the season. They beat QPR 2-1 away. They have got Cardiff coming up on Tuesday night, which will be can we have 6 pointers 11 games into the season?
We had them last year, didn't we? So I suppose you can, yeah.
Yeah, that's a massive game for them down at the bottom of the league. They've got John Messinio, not Mourinho, Messinio as their manager. How do you see this one going on Friday? Because a long old trip down to Portsmouth, of course.
These are a good side. I know they're 23rd in the league, but these are what you would expect from a League One side coming up. Very organised, very hard working. I'd take a point now. I know that sounds incredibly negative, but it is a short game week. There's going to have to be some squad rotation in there, and I think we saw the drop off of our first team squad to kind of like our bench players coming in. I would still like to think that we've got enough in our squad to be able to take 3 points down there on Friday. But I would take a point now. I'm going to go for a 0-0 at Portsmouth.
Would that be taking a point having beaten Swansea? Because I think I would do the same. If we've got 3 points on Tuesday, then it go back to me 4 points out of these next two games total, and I'd be more than happy with that. Win your games at home, draw your games away. You're not going to be too far off come the end of the season. No. Having said that, no, you said the hard working and stuff, but they've shipped a lot of goals recently. They've conceded 1 in the last 2 games, QPR and Oxford. They shipped 6 against Stoke, which they'll put down as a bit of an anomaly. They held Sheffield United, and I think that's one of their 2 clean sheets. They've had 1 against United and 1 against Luton. But shipped 2 against Burnley, 3 against West Brom, 3 against Sunderland. They would argue that they're 3 sides that have been at the top of the league at some point this season. But I think we've just got to take the chances. They're going to give us chances. We've got to take them. Yes. I'm going to put us down for. I'm going to go another 2-0 win. Let's be positive. Let's and
James, I could fully see that happening. Could fully see that happening a week on Friday. I think it's just because it's such a short game week, and because it is, and I know it shouldn't make a difference because it's only 6 hours and they'll fly. It is a long old poke down there, and those Friday night games with, our key players have not had a break. And when I say our key players, I mean Shea Charles, because you saw, and that is, but that's been real. Is yesterday you saw his least impactful performance since Millwall. And that was down to the fact that he has had 0 break in playing football. And you're now going to ask him to go 3 games in 6 days, which, I know he's 20-odd and he should be able to do it. Yeah. But still, you're asking an awful lot from him and Bannon, who's playing alongside him in midfield as well.
Do you know what? It would not surprise me if Shea Charles perhaps was rested on Tuesday, because he'll probably then play on Friday against Portsmouth, and then he'll 100% definitely not play against Brentford in that midweek. So it'll mean that it's kind of weekend. We have out those two midweek games in there. That would also then mean that you've probably got to put a Palmer in there, maybe an Ingleson, maybe. But then that also then means that we're asking Bannon to do that and play all those games. The only difference being that Bannon did have that international break and didn't have 2 games in there, so maybe he perhaps could carry on and have and not play against Brentford. But it certainly wouldn't surprise me if he mixed it up a little bit, because you've got to look long term. It's 46 games in this league. And, the season does not finish next week, and how when we're a bit thin on the ground, we need to get to the end of the season. You could argue, let's get your points now, but just by playing those players never guarantees you a win, does it? So again, would not surprise me whatsoever, and we'll see. Dan's just put Jamal Lowe's has won after last season. Scored, of course, in that fixture, didn't he? When that was the game where I took my lad and we missed, he missed both goals by wanting to go to the toilet, which also meant that I missed one of them. And you're right there, Matt's having a bit of a coughing fit there, but
just slowly dying, James. It's fine. We'll move on.
Do you know what? You've done really well to get to an hour and a half without passing out, but he missed both of the goals. I missed their goal, and Steve missed our goal when he went down to, taking him to the toilet. But anyway, right, let's wrap things up. We are going to be heading over and recording Extra Time, which again, I like nicking ideas off other podcasts here. Which why think of your own ideas when other people can do that for you? So if you don't listen to the, you know what, this is going to sound really shit as well, but it will be good. Don't worry about it. The podcast with Max Rushton, what I did yesterday, which is exactly just talking about what someone did yesterday. That's exactly what we're going to do on Extra Time, and listen to how Matt's day went yesterday, all from obviously driving up from Birmingham, what the game, everything that happened before and after, and let's get into the nitty gritty. So looking forward to that one. So if you want to listen to that, patreon.com/WTID pod. I mean, there's a shit ton of stuff on there, by the way, this week. Lee Gregory interview. We've got the preview for Swansea. I'm recording the preview for Portsmouth tomorrow, so that'll be up at some point. So you've got loads of content, and of course you can just find out what Matt had for his breakfast yesterday as well. So
and if that doesn't sway it, I don't know what will.
Do you know what? If someone signs up now, they need to leave a comment and say, I signed up because I wanted to know what Matt had for breakfast. They have to do it now. That's an absolute cert. Massive thanks everyone for those that have tuned in live. Massive thanks everyone that's listening along. Really do appreciate it. And we'll be back on Wednesday with another debate show, hopefully talking about a win against Swansea. Fingers crossed. So we'll see you all then. Thank you very much, and good night.